is the North American service broadcasting on 17.70, 15.42, 12.05.
Are you a worshiper of the devil?
What have you done to its eyes?
The next time you're frightened in the dark, don't scream.
They are not what they claim to be.
You're listening to Radio.
Hello, we're back again.
We're back.
Hello, we're back again.
We're back.
Hello, we're back again. Hello.
We're back again. Against your will. We're gonna get you. We're gonna freak you out.
Oh, that's not my intention.
We're in the window. We're using gas.
Oh my God.
We're incapacitating you.
We're jacking off
We're
on your window pane.
We're
We're siphoning gas through the window crack while we're putting the spray gun back in our crack.
and the James. And the James. And the James.
yeah,
And the James. Bigfoot in her kitchen. Bigfoot in her kitchen. Bigfoot in her kitchen.
Ba-da-da-da. Yeah.
Ba-da-da-da.
I mean, welcome back.
Oh yeah, welcome back. This is Edna's kitchen.
No, it's not. It's part 2 of Mad Gasser.
Part 2
damn.
of
God damn it. Edna, please.
Egna.
Egna, please.
Egna, please.
Egna James.
Egna, please. No shoes on in the house. Breedable Egna.
Sorry about that. Turned into a weird Krusty the Clown.
Hi, I'm here with, this is Dom.
That's Amber. I'm Dom.
This is Dom.
Yeah, I am. And this is part 2 of Mad Gasser.
Welcome back. This has been a whole whirlwind of event.
Yeah, the last episode was just going over all of the events of the Mad Gasser attacks.
Yes, of Mattoon.
There's like 20-something attacks and counting, right? Mm-hmm. And like
I think
30 plus victims.
Let me take a quick little look really quick. I just had it in my face. 21 attacks, 30 victims that we are aware of.
Yeah, probably more.
If we counted Edna's attack, it would be 22-31.
I believe it.
So, you know.
Spiritual attack is an attack.
Don't yawn.
I'm sorry about that. I was being spiritually attacked.
I know you're being spiritually something. We have thrown all the rules out the window for this recording session because we just are not in it like today. We are bonkers.
I'm all in it. The fuck?
No, I mean, I'm balls in. My marbles are gone.
Oh, yeah. No, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, so.
We'll bring it back. We talked about all the gas attacks.
Right.
And this episode is mostly...
Why? Who? Where?
Yeah.
And...
all the speculation, all the theories, and explanations that we could find.
Of course.
You want to take it away, brother?
Sure. I'll take it away. I'll take it away forever.
Oh, wow.
So, about 4 months after the last gas attack in Mattoon, a psychology student from the University of Illinois named Donald Johnson. He would later go on to earn a doctorate in psychology. So we will refer to him as Dr. Donald Johnson later, just so you know. Okay.
Fine.
Okay, sounds good. Donald Johnson would find the events which occurred in Mattoon to be absolutely intriguing and would ultimately decide to travel down to Mattoon to carry out an academic field study on the people of Mattoon. Johnson would end up speaking extensively with the Mattoon Police Department and other local officials on the ordeal, and his research paper would be published in the Journal of Abnormal and Social Psychology the following January in 1945 under the title The Phantom Anesthetist of Mattoon, a Field Study of Mass Hysteria. The paper is relatively in-depth and is an all-right read if you're able to get your hands on it, but to keep things brief, we've boiled it down for you. Johnson argued that there was never a single incident of an actual attack from the very beginning.
Okay.
He believed that the propaganda spread to the community regarding the possibility of a foreign gas attack on the U.S. caused a heightened level of stress and anxiety in the town. He believed Mrs. Kearney experienced a paranoid breakdown and fell to her own self-deception. There was never a figure in her window pumping poison gas into her room.
Whatever.
Yeah. In his opinion, Johnson believed the claims of the gas attacks were plainly absurd. And because the media and the authorities fully indulged these claims, the hysteria got out of hand. Johnson noted that once the police stopped playing along, the attacks stopped as well.
Okay. If you want to say that, sir.
Right.
Being that your only source is the police.
Oh, yeah, and we'll go into that. Johnson believed the whole event was entirely improbable and questioned the validity of the gas itself. He was fully convinced that there was no scientific possibility that an attack like the ones documented in Mattoon could be carried out and be able to cause the effects that it had. In his paper, he stated the following, quote, "In order to produce effects of the kind reported when sprayed through a window, the gas would have to be a very potent, stable anesthetic with rapid action, and at the same time, so unstable that it would not affect others in the same room. It would have to be strong enough to induce vomiting and paralysis, and yet leave no observable after effects." Study of a standard source on anesthetics and more gases in consultation with medical and chemical colleagues at the University of Illinois indicates that the existence of such a gas is highly improbable. Chemists are extremely skeptical of the possibility that such an extraordinary gas could be produced by some, quote, mad genius working in a basement. So I do agree with him about some of these things. Like the gas thing is kind of unexplainable scientifically, but
I don't think so.
nothing else.
I know we go into gases in a little bit, but I don't think it's improbable. You can have a super concentrated gas that you can pump into a room. I don't know why he says so unstable that it wouldn't affect others in the same room, because this person could be wearing a mask, because no one ever said they saw the face. Could be wearing a mask, probably has it in a stable container, or they're getting burns or something doing it. Like, there's no way to know that. And also, people make fucking chemical weapons in their house all the time.
Right. But we'll get into that. It's a whole thing. So I understand what he's saying. He has actual colleagues and people that he can talk to that are like, yes, this is scientifically impossible. Everything else that he has said has been nothing but misinformation.
Yeah, because his other sources are just
Not
fucking up
real.
their own asses. Yeah.
Yeah. Johnson's paper gained popularity both academically and publicly. It was considered to be very detailed, intensive, and the most widely accepted explanation for the entire event in Mattoon, and encouraged the narrative that nothing had ever happened. It was convincing. The whole thing was case closed to academics, the media, and the authorities, and it remained that way ever since. And so this leads us into the first main theory behind the attacks of the Mad Gasser of Mattoon, which is Theory 1, mass hysteria. Logical and popular, but inconsistent and arrogant.
So, Dr. Donald Johnson's paper is still argued to be the firmest explanation for what actually happened that summer in Mattoon, but for the sake of neutrality, we just want to bring a little bit of insight to the forefront of this particular theory because there are inconsistencies.
Yeah.
All of Dr. Johnson's research is based on flawed and biased information, like we were saying. The people of Mattoon did not like the attention that came from the Mad Gasser attacks, and it should be well understood that the community gained absolutely nothing from the entire event other than a negative reputation for being hysterical.
Yeah.
They wanted nothing more than to just be left alone and carry on their simple lives. Like, they didn't even have fucking fridges, half of them.
Yeah.
They just want to live.
Just let them be Mattoonians.
Mattoonians. Therefore, the residents were not too thrilled when Dr. Johnson arrived in town a short time after the attacks had finally ended. It's not necessarily known whether or not Dr. Johnson held any sort of subconscious prejudice against the people of Mattoon, and there's no concrete evidence that shows Dr. Johnson believed that the citizens of Mattoon were stupid or inept, but he did know Mattoon was a town of blue-collar rural people and painted them as being simple at best. It is documented that the residents of Mattoon were unwelcoming and not forthcoming with information or personal experiences whatsoever. It was obvious that Dr. Johnson was picking at a wound that was still too fresh. From the perspective of your average Mattooner, it's safe to assume they were not interested in being studied, and it seems as if there was a general lack of respect from Dr. Johnson for the privacy of the people of Mattoon, especially the victims. Because of a lack of cooperation from the residents of Mattoon, Dr. Johnson had to rely on the only information that was available, the news reports from the Gazette, and the willing statements and testimonies from the Mattoon PD and other city officials. So he's like trying to get information, but they're just like, nope, shut up, stop.
Girl,
it's just dumb.
It's just like the most biased
it's not
study
critical
ever.
Thinking at
It's
all.
just, how can you study a group of people without talking to them?
Yeah.
How can you study an event that involves people
without talking to
anybody except for the media, the newspapers, and the public officials who were controlling the situation? How is that a study on people?
Right.
On a psychosocial event? It's not.
Yeah, and then draw some conclusion and write a paper on it.
It's not. No. Period. Point blank.
Point blank.
So, just saying.
Well, the fact that most of Dr. Johnson's information of the event came from the newspaper and the police alone proves, to me anyway, that his research has a total lack of perspective on the event. Because of this, there are a handful of inconsistent facts that end up being published and taken to be honest academic truth. Dr. Johnson's paper plainly fails to give straight facts. Let's begin with his lack of inclusion in the staggering amount of victims.
Yeah.
Like we were just saying.
Yeah.
Dr. Johnson's paper leaves out mentions of men and children being victimized in the gas attacks and concentrates solely on the women who were attacked.
Yeah.
So his paper has a plain misogynistic tone that leans heavily on female hysteria, and the reader is none the wiser. You think it's just women that are involved because he doesn't mention anyone else.
It's something that we even see today where it's like, well, why would this academic get his paper published unless it was honest and true?
Right.
Because he has the credentials. Why would it not be honest and true?
Because he's dumb.
Not that he's dumb. He just doesn't
dumb.
care. He just doesn't care about...
Not caring is dumb.
He doesn't care about the honest truth of the situation. He's like looking at it. He's pretentious. He's looking at it through his own lens and like what he wants.
Yeah, dumb.
It's dumb. Oh, no men or children were affected. Only women who are all on their periods.
Dr. Johnson also claims that none of the victims from the gas attacks had truly been ill or suffered from any long-lasting illnesses, which is inaccurate. Almost all of the victims suffered illness from the effects of the gas attacks, right?
Yes.
From what we know.
Yes, every single one.
The least severe effects, like coughing and waking with anxiety, can be dismissed, understandably. However, the random and extreme waves of dizziness and nausea followed by violent fits of vomiting can't be dismissed.
No.
It's documented that almost every single victim reported they experienced dizziness and nausea. 45% of those victims suffered from extremely violent bouts of vomiting. So it's not just like, I did a little pukey in my mouth. I ate something bad. I got indigestion. It's like, no, they're violently puking.
Yeah.
Like projectile style because they're poisoned.
30 victims.
Yeah.
So
almost half of those.
45% of them were vomiting.
Right. Like
violently.
Yeah. Not just vomiting. Violently
All
vomiting.
of them were dizzy and nauseous. Half of them were vomiting.
And then there are the effects of paralysis. Many sources claim that quite a few of the victims experienced paralysis, but this is a misconception due to the assumption that the term paralysis was being used as a sort of blanket term at the time. It's documented that only about 10% of victims experienced full effects of paralysis with the inability to move, in this case, their lower bodies, whatsoever. The other reports of paralysis plainly describe sensations of numbness or weakness in the legs.
Right.
And many of these victims are still able to use their limbs, just not very well. While the validity of the paralysis claims are often a debate, it should just be noted that these effects were still well documented.
Yeah. And also, like, they were well documented, and there is an idea that possibly the attacks that happened in the beginning, so like Mr. and Mrs. Rafe with Mrs. Kearney, somehow their effects and their side effects and their reactions to the gas attacks are a lot more intense than the ones to come after. Those first few were really, really intense. And it's kind of commonly believed that this is because of the gas having a different potency that would change over time. So it was extremely potent in the beginning, and then as time went on it got less and less potent. That is something that people kind of believe to be a thing.
That seems fair,
because that's kind of what we see even in the events, is that the first few were really, really severe, and then after that they kind of gets weaker and weaker and weaker, and
the very last attack is like a little kid just like falling down. So that checks out to me.
Well, the last attack wasn't that.
It wasn't?
No, it was Edna
Oh,
getting sprayed in the face by her monkey man.
ape ass.
Ape ass. So, anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, after Edna, so besides the puking and the dizziness and paralysis, there are serious effects. I mean, because those are, kind of symptomatic. And then the serious effects would be like the sensation of burning in the throat, mouth, nose, which were often accompanied by dryness and cracking of the skin, as well as weeping, skin irritation, redness, facial swelling. Those are like long-term, sort of lingering effects.
Yeah.
Which I would consider more serious. Less severe, but more serious.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kearney suffered from these effects, and although she seemed to have had a quick recovery at first, she went on to suffer from severe medical complications, which the Gazette reported almost cost her whole life.
Yeah.
Remember that from that editorial piece.
Right.
Mrs. Cordes also suffered from these effects and was witnessed by both her husband and a local physician having a severe fit of vomiting bile and bleeding from her mouth after sniffing the contaminated cloth. This is also documented.
Yeah. He very proudly and clearly states there's no documentation that anything ever happened medically to these people.
There's no documentation except the documents.
Except for the documents, except for literally them existing.
Yeah.
Being harmed by this.
Dr. Johnson claimed in his paper that there was no proof to support that there was a madman on the loose. Not everything is so black and white.
Yeah.
There were items left behind,
Right.
like the Cortez cloth, the skeleton key, lipstick. Prints were found, like the high-heeled shoe prints, in Bertha Birch's flower bed. And property was damaged. There were screens that were ripped, slashed, shredded, storm windows were removed,
Etc.
etc. With just these examples alone, there is a basis to delegitimize Dr. Johnson's research paper as an honest or credible piece of source material to support any theory which revolves around a mass hysteria event occurring in Mattoon.
Yes.
But Dr. Johnson's work continues to be cited and used to arrogantly push a narrative that simply has no ground to stand on. It's the complete opposite of all the documented evidence.
Yeah. Which is insane because when I was researching a lot of this, it just had a particular focus on the mass hysteria event. There was a mass hysteria event. This is what happened. Oh, it was hysteria. It's just shit. It's all just like shit. Like any books or any articles or anything that I could find. Anything. Every single one was different. Facts were often left out and conjecture was always left in. Even some of the more academic bits of literature that I came across were based in misinformation. And more often than not, they proudly conveyed an extremely pretentious sort of tone where it's like, this is fact. And it's like, fact on something that isn't a fact, though.
Yeah. You can't
Like,
just say something's a fact and it
You
is.
can't base your entire book off of a document that was put into a fucking psychiatry journal in fucking 1946 or some shit and say that this is the explanation for everything. Like, we live in modern times. There's more information available now. You can use your noggin. You can go further. You can have other source material. It's just lazy research. Like, you're lazy, it's uninspiring, you're boring, you're misinformed, your uninformed opinions outweigh the facts. Like, you're nothing, you're no one, this is nothing.
Yeah.
I don't care about what you have to say because you just want to say that these things never happened. And that's just not how history works.
This is what I found out. That's it.
But basically, yes. Like, in regards to history, I feel like you really just have to be neutral and go into it neutral, having no opinion. And being informed and just having good source material and know what you're looking at and listening to. Anyway, rant over.
So, okay. I'm going to hand it off to you in a second because...
I went off. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. In an attempt to provide a real argument that supports the theory of a mass hysteria event from an unbiased and factual standpoint, we can take a look at a source that can be considered to be the most convincing catalyst of the hysteria in Mattoon, the Gazette.
The Gazette. And also, I would like to apologize. I know that we're supposed to be coming from an unbiased standpoint now, and I just got done screaming
Well, no, there's a
about
difference.
bias, but
We're not being biased. Unless the bias is that you should fucking critically think before
That's true.
publishing a research paper. I don't think that's bias. I think that's common sense.
if you are a person who is alive today, if
I am.
you are me, making YouTube videos or podcast episodes or writing anything academically or putting anything out that other people are going to consume, you need to be informed about what you're putting out. Even though this isn't like that big of a deal, it's still not a good idea to put out information that is not verifiable, that has no citation, that is not based in fact.
Yeah, no, it's like this particular string of events isn't super like consequential, I think, to like day-to-day life, but it speaks to the ease with which someone can just lie in an official fucking research paper. There's a slew of problems in what you see here. Manipulation from authority, and then that information is the singular source for secondary information, which becomes like the primary
Right.
for anyone who wants to learn about this. It's just not good.
I just want to say that it was a long time ago, and I
The
understand.
past is the past. I shitted my pants at prom one time, and no one will.
It was satin,
It was
tulle, and satin. Okay, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. Just derailing me.
sorry.
Basically, I think what I'm trying to say more than anything is that I am irritated by people who have
Access to all the same tools you do.
access to all the same tools that I do, but they choose to be naysayers and they choose to be misinformed. And there's this weird thing too with a super smug overtone of, you're ridiculous if you think that this even happened, because it's not even scientifically possible. Everyone is stupid. Everyone's way less smart than they are. They know what really happened, which is that everyone else is crazy and nothing ever happened, and I'm going to write about it.
I don't fucking get it.
Two-
It's like it's an ego thing.
It's an
I
ego
guess,
thing.
But
Well, and then it's like, and then it's kind of like, well, what am I getting out of this? It's like, I'm not really getting anything out of it anyway.
I mean, that's kind of the point of this project, is to give actual information.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, we have whatever, like, natural biases. Like,
Of
of course I
course.
want everything to be aliens, but it's not.
Right. Well, and for the sake of history.
Yeah, no, it's,
It's for the sake of this event being insane.
yeah, the truth is way stranger than fiction. If you enjoy our content, please rate, review, and consider becoming a patron by visiting patreon.com/radiograve. You can also support us with a one-time donation by visiting buymeacoffee.com/radiograve. Your patronage and support helps us continue to create content for you. You can stay up to date with us by following our Instagram account, Radio Grave Podcast. Thank you for listening.
So, the Gazette and support for commissioner rights theory. Boom. It needs to be recognized that the Gazette played a huge role in fear-mongering during this event.
Yeah.
The first victims of the gas attacks didn't come forward until seeing the front page news about Mrs. Kearney's attack. The issue with the Gazette putting out that first newspaper headline is that it's extremely suggestive and sensationalized. The title is Anesthetic Prowler on Loose. Mrs. Kearney and daughter first victims. What the fuck does that imply?
A lot.
A lot. So it implies that a perpetrator is recognized and is given a moniker immediately, and he's on the loose. He's out of control. No one has a leash on him, which is even scarier to the reader, strikes total fear. And then the kicker is first victims. It begs the question, are you going to be the next victim? Who is second? Who's third? Who's fourth victim? The Gazette made one thing perfectly clear. They had hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Period.
Like, here we go.
The Gazette would continue to print headlines, most not as wild as the first, and document the attacks over the weeks, but they would go on to print a handful of editorials as well. And these editorials often stirred uncertainty in Mattoon, and they were not shy when expressing frustration towards the local authorities. They also would take people's submissions, so it's a little bit more personal. It's not great. The Gazette played a huge role in fear-mongering. I think that the hysteria was caused by the perpetrator.
by someone coming and gassing people in their houses.
Right. But
Yeah.
I think that the Gazette was more mongering that fear.
Yeah.
Do I think that they are to blame for both? I mean, I think that the culmination of the two totally made this situation go out of control.
Yeah, I think it was a mix of fear-mongering from the Gazette and inaction from the authorities that really culminated in
This whole thing.
just a clusterfuck. Because if either of those elements weren't present, it would be very different. But the headlines didn't help. So this second theory that we're going to deep dive into is one that has been heavily discussed and has gained quite a bit of recognition. This specific theory isn't one that has been newly discovered by any means, but it is one that has been silenced for decades. The Mad Gasser's true identity was Mattoon's very own local outcast. That's the theory.
Hey,
Oh, wrong outcast.
Oh.
Sorry, Miss Jackson. So, Farley Llewellyn, the boy genius, was the eldest son of a well-respected family who owned a grocery store in Mattoon on DeWitt Avenue. He graduated from Mattoon High School at the top of his class and was described as an absolutely brilliant young man by his teachers and college professors. He had a special interest in science, specifically chemistry. Farley was not what one would consider to be an amateur when it came to chemistry. He was confident in academics, but it seemed like he struggled socially, which is often the case with very bright people. He was awkward, and it was said that he didn't fit in with his peers since he didn't share common interests with many of his classmates. Especially for very, very intelligent people, it's hard to have a conversation. I mean, like, not saying that I'm smart, but, like, for example, my current job and the job before that, I work with, like, teenagers. And so we don't have much to talk about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've definitely had conversations with people where I'm like, I am way out of my depth.
Oh, abso-fucking-lutely.
Where I've been like, holy shit.
I know a
like,
lot of people like that as well, where I'm like, I can't even say anything. Like, I fear talking to you because
I'm
you're
just gonna
fucking
shut the
way
fuck
smarter
up.
than
Yeah.
me.
Well, because it's like I just know my place.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And it's below you.
Yeah, like I
Like-
can't even say anything in response to what you're telling me because I
just
have
am gonna
no idea
listen.
what's going on.
I'm
Yeah,
just gonna absorb, but I do know he definitely felt like that 100% because when no one understands you or the way that you think and no one cares about what you have to say or what you're trying to say to them, they're just gonna be like, well, he's a fucking freak.
weirdo.
I
was talking about sports ball. Damn.
I just want to talk about sport ball, girls, cars,
Girls
and girls.
and the vagina of a girl as well.
I love vagina.
That's the science name.
That's a science name.
Vagina.
You like, hey, Farley, you like science, right? Vagina. That's scientific, right?
Literally.
Or
40s Illinois.
Or do you like something that's not vagina, more like dick pipe or
Sorry. We'll get into that in a second. Just 1
dick
minute.
piper?
Just give me a second.
He's back?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Homosexuality is back.
Oh,
Back
fuck.
again.
Well, I
Homo's back.
I literally already
Hello,
paid for
friend.
conversion camp for you and me
Oh.
last year. I'm not paying for it again, so it's your turn. How else are we supposed to get into
for
heaven?
it. I have money.
If you're
I have
gay,
money.
then
No.
we can't get into heaven.
I have money though.
Where?
On my Amex, dude. They take Amex up there.
Oh, in heaven or
Yeah.
or at the gay conversion camp?
Both. But I mean, I meant for heaven.
Oh,
I got
shit.
things I want to buy in
In
my
heaven?
in my worldly life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Just we'll plan it later. So, yeah, he didn't fit in. Can't relate.
Can't relate. I fit in my whole life.
Same. He didn't seem to be worried about it, though. He didn't worry about maintaining a social life. He had hardly any friends, and he didn't seem to be interested in girls, just academics. He's like, fuck that. I don't care. Science.
That's kind of hot though.
That's kind of how you get pussy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've been telling people this for... Okay, tangent. On Instagram, my personal Instagram, I have this thing where people can send you anonymous questions. And people will ask me shit like, how do I get this girl to like me? And I'm like...
Be smarter than her.
No, I'm like, just stop. Be a person.
Yeah.
Why are you seeking out pussy? You let pussy come to you by being the bomb.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. You know what I mean?
Don't be desperate.
But it's a little advice for any youngsters listening.
Any of you guys looking for pussy?
Y'all looking for pussy? If you build it, they will come.
Here's the thing. If you have to change who you are or dumb yourself down
Oh,
or be
hell
someone you're
no.
not for someone who you like, that person isn't going to like you back. That person doesn't like you.
I can't imagine stifling myself in any way to make someone like me.
I did, actually, for a long time, everybody I knew.
Yeah, and that sucks.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Now you don't do that.
I don't have to do that. And guess what? I have like 4 friends.
And I bet they're fulfilling relationships.
Actually, I have more than 4 friends. And they're all so fulfilling and so genuine and so important.
That's
to
how
me.
you get real, authentic, long-lasting relationships that actually mean something.
So just be you.
Tangent over. After graduation, Farley went on to study at the University of Illinois in Urbana. He majored there in chemical engineering. He eventually graduated from university, but at some point returned back to Mattoon in his late 20s and was just as awkward and antisocial as ever. Upon returning, it appeared that Farley had picked up a very severe drinking habit and was drunk all the time. He exhibited, quote, bizarre behavior and was known to get belligerent at times, but not violent, just obnoxious. Rumors began to spread that Farley was not just an alcoholic, a rumor that can be argued wasn't necessarily new to the conversation.
So, yeah, this detail seems to align with a, quote, don't ask, don't tell sort of tone. There was a quiet judgment present, but it is unknown whether there was any sort of confrontation.
Yeah. So people were like definitely judging, but he maybe didn't. Like,
it was
get
like
beat
a
up or
weird
anything.
open secret. We'll kind of talk more about like his family and their role in the community, but it was kind of an open secret. Everybody knew, but no one really talked about it.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why he was kind of treated differently. He didn't like girls. He only liked academics, and he was gay.
Yeah.
That's like what was well known about Farley Llewellyn. And he was drunk.
Sounds like me to a T.
I was just about to say that.
Instead of living at home with his family, Farley moved himself into a small trailer parked behind his father's general store. With the help of his parents' finances, Farley was able to build a basic scale chemistry lab in his little trailer. Many believe that Farley would hide out there all day long and conduct, quote, science experiments. But this was likely because Farley would often openly talk about it. So, of course, Farley was pretty much the main suspect in the gas attacks in Mattoon. Because they're like
immediately.
He's like, he's like walking around drunk. I do science in my trailer. And they're like, you're the gasser. No one else says they're doing science in their trailer. Literally. He had the knowledge and the ability and the resources to concoct any sort of mystery chemicals in the trailer. Additionally, Farley's trailer was close to a handful of the locations attacked by the Mad Gasser, but Mattoon is very, very small. So, from an outsider's perspective, it may seem strange that Farley was never publicly blasted by the Gazette as a possible suspect under investigation, but there are a few possible reasons for that. Farley's father, Mr. Llewellyn, was a pillar of the community and an upstanding citizen. He was kind and very charitable. He was known to extend credits to struggling families in need of groceries. After his death, he willed that anyone in the community who was financially indebted to him or his store would be forgiven. Which is very nice, especially in wartime. Like,
it was wartime rationing.
Yeah, he was respected, appreciated, and the authorities, and likely many citizens, didn't want to bring unnecessary negative attention to him and his family. It's also fair to recognize that the city's overall levels of hysteria and volatility were at an all-time high. There was still a possibility that if anyone caught the Mad Gasser or thought they knew who the Mad Gasser was, they were going to kill him on sight. They're like running around with rifles and shit.
A lady almost blew her husband's head off.
Yeah. She killed all her children because of that.
Yeah.
Remember?
Literally. Damn. I was there.
I was the rifle.
I was the rifle. I was whispering in her ear and I said, shoot them,
kill them all.
Kill them all. That's me.
It's safe to assume, for everyone's safety, Farley's name would remain unmentioned to the public during the investigation to protect him from becoming a victim of an eventual witch hunt. A physical hunt.
I think people felt bad for the Llewellyns too.
Yeah, probably.
He's just like the nicest man who's ever lived, you know? And his son is obviously mentally ill.
Yeah.
Substance abuse. it just would seem so bad to attack them or to blast them. They're already existing like so harmlessly.
Like, you don't need to put a blight on that. And so, Farley was heavily interrogated, followed, and at some point was under a 24-hour surveillance for several days, but nothing ever came of it. There was no evidence ever recovered from his trailer, mostly because in the last week of August, Farley's trailer had caught fire and was left in shambles after an apparent accidental explosion caused by a misstep in one of his supposed scientific experiments. But eventually he was left alone.
So the theory of Farley Llewellyn being the mad gasser of Mattoon is not a theory that is necessarily new or old. It's been around for a while, but it was sort of a main theory in one of my sources for this document, which is the book, The Mad Gasser of Mattoon, Dispelling the Hysteria by Scott Maruna. And in his book, Maruna's overall tone is questionable in regards to Farley Llewellyn and his two sisters. Maruna states that the community was loyal to Mr. Llewellyn and held him in the highest esteem, but doesn't hesitate to hold back on some of the other opinions held by himself and supposedly the community. So, according to Maruna, the Llewellyn's grocery store was very untidy. The store was filled with cats wandering openly, and the place was often cluttered and unorganized.
I'm sorry, it's wartime, sir.
Catherine and Florence Llewellyn, Farley's sisters, were often seen working the counter and stocking the shelves. Both were described as being heavy, frumpy, and homely. Which is like, okay.
Yeah, well, so...
He also describes them as wearing ill-fitting too long dresses and had a lack of personal hygiene and seemed as if they never brushed their hair.
I think they're bad people. Based on that, I'm pretty sure he did it. Just saying.
It just seems weird that it's like, oh, well, Farley was able to use his parents' finances and money to like have his own little chemistry set in the trailer. But then it's also suggested that the girls were like homely, frumpy, and didn't have clothes that fit them or like knew how to take care of themselves. And I'm not saying that money equals having the ability to do those things. Yeah. I just think that it seems weird. It just seems like two different sides of the coin, in my opinion. So Scott Maruna also talks about how it was also rumored that Catherine and Florence were viewed as being, quote, like their brother, and that their sexual orientations were subject to local gossip as well.
So they thought they were lesbians.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also there's some sort of weird, I don't know. They make it seem like they were lesbians with each other.
Oh, they thought they were like incestuous lesbians?
Kind of, yeah. Like there's some overtone that's happening that's just like, they're gay. All of the kids are gay.
And they're even worse than that.
And they're like gay with each other because that's how gay works. It's just weird. Like, I don't know. I don't love Scott Maruna's opinion on anything.
Fair enough.
He had some really, really good information. And I'm more than happy to cherry pick information and facts that are cited well.
Yeah, picking facts out of
conjecture.
Opinion and conjecture is one thing.
Maruna believed that Farley was spiraling into insanity due to having to remain a closeted homosexual.
Okay.
Farley's trailer exploded at the end of August and then was hastily repaired, and then the gas attacks began shortly after. The first few gas attacks were all on young couples and families around the same age as Farley, and Maruna believes that these victims likely could have been Farley's old classmates. Mrs. Kearney's gas attacks in the newspaper gave Farley the recognition he was looking for, and like the power he was able to yield by striking fear in Mattoon.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's a sound theory.
As Farley carried out more attacks, he began to be suspected and surveilled by the FBI and the police. So he used his sisters, his incest-lesy sisters, as an extension of himself, in Scott Maruna's opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not factual, but that's kind of like
that's the vibe.
That's the vibe. So, anyway, since Farley was always accounted for, Maruna believed that Catherine and Florence went on to carry out the later gassings for their brother. Maruna points at the fact that the later attacks seemed to target a much younger demographic and single women with children, as compared to couples the same age as Farley. He makes connections to the female intruder in high-heeled shoes witnessed by Bertha Birch, as well as the lipstick tube.
So here's the thing. He makes a point to mention that they're heavy.
Yeah.
All the witnesses said that it was a really skinny, gangly, tall person.
That's the thing, is that he goes out of his way to talk about how fat his sisters were, right?
Yeah.
He also says in his book that some of the attacks were carried out by short, plump gassers, which is like, he's the only source for that. So even though it's in his book, I can't say yes or no.
Yeah.
It's just not known.
Yeah, he might have just made that up.
Well, I just don't know where he sourced it from.
A vision?
So, I mean, I've never even seen Catherine and Florence. How does he know that they're fat?
Source? The prophecies of old.
And also, what's your opinion of fat?
They were clearly a size 8. Perhaps even 10. It's like, okay, is that okay?
And also, just because Bertha Birch saw a female intruder with high heels on and there's a lipstick tube, that does not mean that it was a woman.
Yeah. And I think that's something that was so deviant in that time, no one even considered it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's like, well, a man wouldn't be wearing high heels or using lipstick. Only a woman does that.
Or even just being like, well, how could it be a woman if she's dressed like a man?
It's like, what, wearing pants? Are you kidding me?
Literally, like, is wearing pants dressing like a man? Because that's something that Bertha says in her thing too, where she was like, it was a woman dressed as a man, but she was still wearing kitten heels. It's like, girl, what? Girl, women can wear pants just like how we can drive a car.
I can't do that yet.
Okay, so...
Just kidding. I just want everything to be clear. I can drive a car. I am 30 years old.
You're 30?
Yes.
You told me you were 22.
I look it, don't I? It's me slurping my own dick. Looking young. Asian don't raisin, brother.
Okay. Let's move on
Continue.
from the dick sucking.
Leave that dick sucking in the past, brother.
Leave that dick sucking to me. So anyway, towards the end of the second week of attacks, Farley lost his mind completely.
Literally, right?
Literally.
Like, had a mental breakdown?
Yeah. So sometime between September 10th and 12th.
What? What? Why are you just looking at me? Do you need something? What?
Never fucking mind. So sometime between September 10th and 12th.
Are you saying September 11th? Is that what you're trying to infer? That's such a fucking reach. That's a reach joke, brother.
Farley would suffer from a severe mental breakdown, causing his parents to place him in a mental asylum, which is where he would remain institutionalized for the rest of his life. Catherine and Florence would never speak about their brother again, and both would never marry or have children and would live their lives in solitude because they were lesbians with each other.
I was going to say, gay incest confirmed.
So ultimately, Maruna paints Farley as a disturbed queer, wreaking havoc on his community with his two frumpy, simple sisters as his pawns, who were also disturbed queers. He uses examples of circumstantial and coincidental evidence as proof and leans heavily on criminal profiling as the structure of his argument. He really does do this. But this is a methodology which has arguably been debunked for its lack of consistency and validity.
Yeah.
This is a methodology that was established fucking so long ago and is kind of used now as a tool. We do use the criminal profiling methodology to help
Solve crimes,
profile people, but it's not factual.
Right.
You cannot use that methodology to say that Farley Llewellyn did this. It's not evidence. It's not real.
Ape Man is.
Ape Man is.
There's no profiling involved in Ape Man. That's how you know
You
he's real.
cannot disprove or prove Ape Man.
You weren't there.
You weren't there.
Unless you had a vision, then you were there.
Maruna's theory was taken seriously at first, so much so that the Mattoon Police Department decided it was necessary to address the allegations after his book was published. But just to keep it brief, Mattoon PD basically rejected Maruna's theory and claimed he had a lack of insider knowledge and was all mild conjecture and conspiracy.
Fair, yeah.
Farley had been ruled out, and no one else in the Llewellyn family had been involved.
Okay.
So it's like he took
If
all
he-
this shit, he put it in his book, and then people were like, well, FBI, Mattoon, what do you think of this? And they're like, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
They weren't involved. Case closed. And I don't really know if I should trust the cops or the FBI about this, but it's just also like I feel that way too.
I think he'd be a really convenient scapegoat, but
And that's really all that it seems to be.
yeah.
Blame it on the deranged queer
Mhm.
and his weird deranged queer family. So, as for the city of Mattoon's voice in the 21st century, the collective consensus is pretty simple. The Mad Gasser attacks happened a long, long, long time ago, and they sort of know what happened, but the bottom line is don't ask too many questions and let sleeping dogs lie.
Subtheory, title, The Stolen Chemistry Set and Mustard Gas Claims, a full breakdown.
It's like 3 paragraphs.
Well, I mean, what is here is very insightful, I think. I think you did good work on it. So some point to the stolen high school chemistry set as proof that anyone could have gotten their hands on the tools and chemicals needed to create a gas to be used in a series of gas attacks. But this theory doesn't hold much water. In the 1940s, chemistry sets and tools were very easy to get your hands on. Not to mention, a general cultural interest in science, especially chemistry, was gaining a lot of momentum at that time.
People loved science.
That's right.
Being academically involved and having an interest in a hobby in science was respectable.
That's right. Having an interest in things like that could advance
Yes.
your country
Yes.
was great. Respectable. At-home chemistry sets and toys were also very popular
Yeah.
and were marketed towards children, teens, and adults. Everybody loves science.
It was for everybody.
Yeah. In fact, 50% of all children's toys sold in the year of 1970 were at-home chemistry sets.
Nightmare.
For the parents, but rock on. Eventually, this hobby fizzled out after years of safety concerns and a lack of manufacturer regulations on children's chemistry sets.
Said nightmare.
Yeah, but I mean, I had chemistry sets as a kid. It's
I had the bake
easy bake oven.
Yeah.
Always wanted one.
And I
Expensive.
suck on the fucking like metal chemical shit that's in there, and that's why I'm the way I am.
Oh, wow. Did you really do that? Okay. You're like, I don't know, I blacked out. So the police considering the stolen chemistry set as a possible lead is one that was laughable at best. It's likely there were a handful of children in town who had setups of their own, as well as adults who just like to dabble in the sciences, but none compared to the access that Farley Llewellyn had.
Yeah.
He had like a setup.
He had
He's
a
a
lab.
science dude. He had a mini lab.
Yeah.
The police also claim they believe that with the chemistry set, the thief may have had some sort of knowledge and intent to create mustard gas
Girl, shut up.
to weaponize against the town. That's very unlikely. So if you could find some like some like classroom music,
Today we're
facts
talking
about mustard gas.
Okay, yeah, do it.
No, I'm not doing it.
Do it. Yes. Facts about mustard gas.
Mustard gas.
No, do the voice.
I'm not doing it.
Okay.
Just imagine. Mustard gas earned its name from its distinct characteristics while in an impure form. It has a yellowish-brown hue while in a solid or liquid form, and has an intense mustard-like odor similar to that of garlic, onions, or horseradish. Didn't they say it was sweet gas? On the
Yeah, scream.
contrary... Shut up. On the contrary, in its pure form, mustard gas is known to be colorless and odorless. It's best known for its use in chemical warfare during both World War I and World War II. It has intense effects on the human body, like burning of the skin, eyes, and lungs, and if exposed for an extended amount of time, permanent blindness and death. Mustard gas is especially dangerous because it is non-water soluble and difficult to wash off. It could be argued that a high school chemistry set could be used to make a purer form of mustard gas, so to speak, but it's not even worth considering in the slightest simply because mustard gas shares virtually no characteristics to the gas which was used in the attacks by the Mad Gasser, even if it was a pure form. The smells differ, the colors differ, and the effects are completely different. So mustard gas is absolutely not the culprit, but there are other gases that have been mentioned over the years that fit the bill a little better.
Let's talk toxins. A brief and basic breakdown on gas theories. There are two different chemicals mentioned right away in the Gazette from the very first article about Mrs. Kearney's attack, and that's chloroform and ether. So let's talk about chloroform. Chloroform is a sweet-smelling chemical that was used as a chemical solvent, pesticide, tobacco additive, and an element in refrigeration, but was primarily used as a medical anesthetic beginning in the late 1840s. It was quickly determined that chloroform was highly dangerous when overused or after having prolonged exposure. It was known to cause sudden heart irregularities when too much was administered to a patient, therefore causing a heart attack, which was usually fatal.
Yeah.
Makes sense. This reaction actually was morbidly nicknamed the sudden sniffer's death. Chloroform was eventually discovered to be highly addictive due to its ability to cause a state of euphoria in small doses.
Nice.
Although it seems as if chloroform may have been used in the gas attacks, it's very unlikely. The effects of chloroform don't match the effects of the gas used in Mattoon. But what about ether? Like chloroform, ether is a sweet-smelling chemical which had a multitude of uses but was mostly used for medical purposes. Ether was very easy to get your hands on and was readily available to the public all the way into the 1930s and was much safer than chloroform. Mm-hmm. It was used as a painkiller and also used to cure the hiccups. A mixture of alcohol and ether was known as spirit of ether and was heavily marketed under the name Hoffman's drops, basically like a cure-all. Mm-hmm. Like chloroform, ether was used recreationally as a drug. It was primarily orally consumed, but was sometimes huffed. Ether can be sprayed into a mist or vapor, and exposure to ether when it is a mist can cause anesthetic-like effects or even unconsciousness. These effects usually take anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes to set in if the contact is not direct. An overdose of ether shares characteristics seen in the effects caused by the gas used in Mattoon. Trouble breathing, coughing, choking, numbness, nausea, vomiting. Those are all symptoms of an overdose of ether. But it should be mentioned that ether in its gas form, when in conjunction with oxygen, can become dangerously flammable, which is why its main uses are while it's in liquid form.
Okay.
So ether has a lot of characteristics shared with the gas used in Mattoon, but it's been determined that it's very unlikely that ether could have been used in the gas attacks. This is most likely due to the fact that, in theory, the ether would have to be impossibly potent to accomplish the effects which were seen in Mattoon. Between both chloroform and ether, neither of them cause effects such as swelling and burning of the skin either. So it sounds like ether, but it would have to be super
potent.
It would have to be so potent that it causes an overdose within seconds. Yep. And then also, these are chemicals that have been used as anesthetics on people's skin and inside their bodies. Yeah. Right? So it has to cause the irritation, the bloodiness, the blistering, the weeping. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't. Mustard gas does. But
it wasn't mustard gas.
But it wasn't mustard gas.
Right.
So it's like, it has these characteristics. It's weird.
Farley Llewellyn's a genius. He's done it again.
Maybe. So, during the investigation, an agent from the U.S. Army Chemical Warfare Service was asked to, in other words, a terrorist. No, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So, was asked to assist in determining what exactly was being used to gas the victims of Mattoon. Their suggestion was a chemical called chloropicrin. So let's talk about chloropicrin.
All right.
Let's talk toxins, baby. Chloropicrin was used as a sort of tear gas during World War I. It caused burning of the eyes, nose, and mouth and induced vomiting. And very low levels of exposure, it is not entirely lethal but can lead to asphyxiation. Chloropicrin is also used as an agricultural pesticide. And because Mattoon was an agricultural community, this chemical may have been very available to the public, but it is not really known if this chemical was being used as a pesticide during the 40s. While the effects of chloropicrin seem similar to the ones seen in Mattoon, this gas is considered to be highly irritating, similar to mustard gas, and the odor of chloropicrin is not documented as being sweet.
So it could be, maybe,
but it's not sweet. That's the thing, is that it's so...
What if they added something?
They could have, yes, maybe. But I don't think that it's odorless. So, gardenia gas. One of the last articles from the Gazette featured a statement from the shotgun farmers who claimed they believed the mad gasser was using, quote, gardenia gas in his attacks. I have searched high and low, and I could not find anything online whatsoever about what exactly gardenia gas is or if it even exists. In my opinion, I think that gardenia gas was possibly a nickname for the mystery gas used by the mad gasser, coined by the citizens of Mattoon due to its sweet and floral scent.
That makes sense.
It's not difficult to find information about this kind of stuff online.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of kind of boring reading. I looked for probably days.
For gardenia gas?
It was just getting annoying because I couldn't find anything. So that's just what I think. It's not fact. It's just what I think. So, sorry.
So sorry.
Sorry,
Bye.
I don't know what to say. But that's kind of that when it comes to possible gases that were used by the assailant.
Could it have been the gases that are produced when mixing a pack of Marlboro Red 100s, 2 sausage egg McMuffins, and a caramel frappe?
Ooh,
that is a pungent gas, which could probably produce all of those effects. And boy, it smells mighty sweet.
Boy, it smells mighty sweet in
No,
there.
that's not good. Title Theory 3. Other gas attacks and the roaming band of burglars. Hamburglars. Thank you. You don't have to look too far back in time to see that there have actually been other gas attack sprees throughout the 20th century in America. In fact, only 6 months prior to the first gas attack in Mattoon, about 730 miles east, is the small town of Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Coatesville was really similar to Mattoon not only in size but also socioeconomically and culturally. It was rural, blue-collar, and conservative. All my favorite things. In February of 1944, a family had reported to police that they had fled their home in the middle of the night after waking up to the smell of a strange, sweet odor in the air and believed there was a possible gas leak. Their other neighbors 2 doors down would also be found in the street after fleeing their homes after they smelled the odor as well. The police were unable to find any sort of explanation for the sweet-smelling gas as they couldn't find any sort of leak. Both families ended up being completely fine, having no negative side effects from the exposure, but unfortunately, that would not be the case for the neighbors who lived in the home between the 2 families. John and Myrtle Reifert, along with their brother Charles, were all found dead in their beds the next day. The cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. Once the police determined there was no evidence of a robbery, talk began to spread that it was homicide. It was speculated that the Reiferts succumbed to the fatal effects of a gas attack, one of which that was so potent that the neighbors on either side of their residence could smell the gaseous fumes in their own homes. While the deaths of the Reifert family were totally devastating, Coatesville was just thankful they didn't see another attack. Farther back in time, before Coatesville in the latter half of the year 1933 and into the springtime of 1934, a string of gas attacks were reported in Botetourt, or Botetot County, Virginia.
Botetot.
I can't figure out how. I just spent so much time trying to figure out how it's pronounced, so
Botetot.
we're going to say Botetourt, even if it's incorrect. I apologize. This was a small rural municipality made up of a multitude of villages, all centralized around the town of Fincastle. Witnesses who saw the perpetrator during this time gave a similar description to the mad gasser of Mattoon, but mentioned that their attacker was often seen carrying a metal apparatus of some kind, one that resembled a cylindrical pesticide sprayer. Ape Man?
Ape Man?
These reports would include details of witnesses sometimes seeing not only one assailant, but sometimes even up to 4, and described a woman assailant to be involved as well. Although this detail is unsubstantiated, there were claims that the attackers had attempted to trap the victims inside their homes using tree branches and stacks of rocks to barricade the windows and doors, but this obviously didn't really work. Most of the victims had claimed they were able to pursue the attackers, usually only chasing them off and unable to capture them. They were most often reported fleeing the scene in a getaway car as well. Altogether, 13 separate households had reported to have been victims of random gas attacks, but it is speculated there may have been more. Just like in Mattoon, the police believed in the beginning that they did indeed have a very serious situation on their hands, only to flip on a dime and chalk the whole thing up to nothing more than mass hysteria, and publicly intimidated the residents into staying quiet. Imagine that. When has that happened before?
Weird is that?
There's very little documentation of this case, and it's unclear whether or not this is just an urban legend, but we believe it's worth mentioning. In late 1935, 750 miles south of Boogeyman County, supposedly there was a string of gas attacks reported in Lake County, Florida, that were believed to have been connected to a series of successful domestic burglaries. Supposedly, a single perpetrator, or maybe perpetrators, we don't know, had used a medical-grade anesthetic to incapacitate their victims by spraying the fumes into the victims' bedroom windows at night, and then would rob them clean. If these attacks were real, the Lake County gas attacks would differ from the others in a prominent way. If the motive was burglary, they were successful. So, are any of these attacks connected? If these attacks were connected, all were perpetrated by one or more of the same assailants and with the same motive. In Boogeyman County, the gas was too weak, and it seemed that the motive was robbery. In Lake County, if the stories are even true, the gas did work and they were able to rob freely all over the area. But years later in Coatesville, an attack on a row of homes would end in the death of 3 people who appeared to be the main targets and weren't robbed. Many ride the idea that just because other gas attacks had been happening around the same time as Mattoon, then that proves that there may be a connection, but there's no solid evidence to prove that this is actually true. It's a stretch to say that all of these crimes were committed by the same people, but that doesn't mean one instance didn't inspire others to commit similar attacks.
I find it really unlikely that they are the same people. I mean, this is a course of like 12 years.
If they were the same people, they really were all over the place with their methods and motives.
So, let's address the elephant in the room. Theory 4. The Atlas Imperial Plant Company pollution. A full breakdown.
And we gonna break it down.
We're gonna break it down. We're gonna break it down fast because this shit is so fucking straightforward. It is hilarious how straightforward this is. You'll see. So to start, let's just refresh a bit on what exactly we're talking about. Police Chief C.E. Cole claimed that the local diesel plant had accidentally had a chemical leak of sorts. That's like the theory. That's what Cole was telling people. Yeah. And he claimed that there were large amounts of a chemical called carbon tetrachloride, or carbon tet. He believed that carbon tet had polluted the air and was carried by the wind all over the city, blowing into people's homes and making them feel sick. And Atlas Imperial Company denied responsibility and provided proof that this claim was untrue. But there are still many academics and misinformed researchers who believe this is what caused the Mad Gasser event in Mattoon.
Cognitive dissonance.
And
Again.
girl, yeah, let's just talk about it. So, to be totally transparent, we are not experts in this kind of stuff.
Speak for yourself.
But I'm a gas head.
They call me the gas boy.
They call me a mad gasser.
Oh, I don't think they... Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not experts.
We're not experts. But once we break down the most palatable and basic details of this theory, you will probably be able to agree that this theory is a cop-out and a failed attempt to use the Atlas Imperial Company as a scapegoat for the gas attacks.
Cop-out.
Cop-out.
Get it?
Yeah, I get it. So what is carbon tet? Carbon tet is a sweet-smelling chemical compound that has been phased out of use over the years due to the fact that it is extremely hazardous to both living organisms and the environment. It, burns insane holes in the ozone. It is disturbing how damaging this chemical is to the environment. Carbon tet, like many other chemicals we have talked about, was commonly used medically beginning in the 1840s. It was described as a pleasant anesthetic and was preferred over chloroform since it seemed a little more agreeable to the human body. It also had a very appealing aroma and taste, which was described as fruity and sweet and not overpowering. Fruity.
Yeah, like a yummy.
Yum, 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 yum. So, carbon tet was definitely harmful and was documented to cause seizures and heart attacks. And once these harms were realized, it was eventually replaced. Carbon tet would continue to be used for other medical means, mostly in pill form that could be taken orally. And carbon tet was commonly prescribed to those in need of treatment of stomach worms.
So it's like, take this pill, it's going to burn those worms out.
Pretty much. So, Carbon-tet has had many other uses over the years as well. It was commonly used as a cleaning agent and solvent for tough materials like tar and oil, and was used in early refrigeration. And a fun fact, carbon-tet was a key ingredient in lava lamps. It made the otherwise buoyant wax heavier, causing the shapeless blobs to bounce up and down.
Carbon-tet made flubber.
I think flubber is just carbon-tet.
Oh my god.
But carbon-tet played a huge role in early developments of fire extinguishers and acted as a gaseous fire suppressant. Carbon-tet is toxic, but when it gets hot, it can become even more hazardous. When carbon-tet is exposed to extreme heat, which is, with fire, it begins to burn and decompose, which produces a gas called phosgene.
Heard of that.
Phosgene has a smell that is similar to wet hay and is extremely toxic to humans, and exposure can be fatal. Eventually, carbon-tet was discontinued to be used in fire extinguishers after multiple deaths were reported after exposure to phosgene fumes. So, how is this theory debunked, right? To put it bluntly, Police Chief C.E. Cole's public statement claiming a carbon-tet leak or a spill had occurred at the Alice Imperial plant is just baseless and plain stupid. So, here's why. The Alice Imperial plant took action in order to defend their reputation and disprove the false claims. A complete and unbiased inspection of the entire plant was conducted by Dr. Cronenberg, a state-certified health and labor official. And here is what we know. There was, in fact, carbon-tet present in the walls of the diesel plant, but Cole's confident claims of large quantities having been present are untrue. There were actually only 5 gallons of carbon-tet found in the entire building, and every last bit was safely contained within a multitude of emergency fire extinguishers that were secured all around the plant. Even if a fire extinguisher had been used, or even all of them used at once, it was determined it would have been totally impossible for the event to cause the effects seen in the gas attacks. And also, not to mention, none of the workers at the Atlas Imperial plant suffered from any side effects which would have been caused in the event of a carbon-tet spill or the excessive use of the fire extinguishers in the building.
Yeah, because if anyone was getting fucked up, it would be them. Because they're in the carbon-tet hole.
Well, yeah. So, even if fumes from a carbon-tet, quote, leak or spill had been able to escape and ride the wind all over town, it would have been impossible for it to be potent enough to cause the effects seen in the gas attacks. And not to mention, all the gas attacks happened at night and for 2 weeks straight.
Listen, it's a night-based chemical.
Listen, okay?
It's a night-based compound.
It's a night-based compound.
You can only put out the fires at night.
Okay, well, how about this? Cole also claimed that it was likely a decent amount of carbon-tet had somehow soaked a random cloth, which floated away to the Cordez's home, carried on the wind.
How'd this carbon-tet get in my panties?
It just doesn't add up either. The cloth appeared 4 days after the first reported gas attack, which means that the carbon-tet spill had occurred 4 to 5 days earlier, and that it took that long for a wet, contaminated cloth to float on the wind to the Cordez's home without interference.
I mean,
the panty was damp to the touch.
Those panties were soaked
with a chemical and was potent. The mysterious chemical that had been present on the Cordez panty had completely evaporated by the time it made its way to the Illinois State Crime Lab, which was an estimated 48 to 72 hours. So again, how could it have stayed so damp and also aerodynamic over the course of 4 to 5 days, floating in the wind, totally exposed panties, and then dry up after coming into contact with the police, being sent to a lab to be,
I mean, mine dry up when they get in contact with police. I see a cop and I'm infertile. I suddenly have no sexuality. I have no libido to speak of.
Oh no.
Whoop. I hit menopause all of a sudden.
All of a sudden?
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
I see sirens. I see the little flashing lights, and I have a what is it? Spontaneous
human combustion.
Spontaneous autohysterectomy. Just whoop.
So Cole claims that carbon-tet, quote, fumes are to blame, right? But also says that liquid carbon-tet is also to blame. It's just not correct.
Just all of it.
You just have to choose one, girl.
No, all of them.
Is it fumes? Is it liquid? Is it solid? What is it? What is the carbon tet doing? What form is it in? How is it getting on the panties? How is it getting in my house? How is it getting in my head? How is it telling me to do these things? It's telling me to hurt people. It's telling me to hurt myself.
How did it make my doors disappear?
How to make my doors disappear? And where'd all my panties go?
Who's in my window and where are my panties?
Literally. Okay. None of these things are connected. It's not a thing. So the carbon tet theory was ultimately rejected and disproven by the Atlas Imperial plant, but officials decided to double down on the blame game and claimed there was another chemical to blame instead. That chemical was trichloroethylene.
His name is my name too. That's crazy.
His name is my name too. Whenever we go out, the people always shout, "Oh
there
my
goes
God.
Trichloroethylene.
Oh my God, get in your house. Here comes trichloroethylene."
Oh, there he is.
So they're like, "Oh no, it's not carbon tet. Well, now it's trichloroethylene." Well, what is trichloroethylene and how is it relevant? Trichloroethylene was a chemical used as a solvent and cleaning agent at the Atlas Imperial plant. And just like carbon tet, has a very sweet smell and was historically used as a medical anesthetic for years before the dangerous side effects of its use were taken into consideration. I don't know how anyone survived like that era of people just being like,
the human body is an amazing thing,
so
isn't it?
Sweet.
Like, this is good.
I'm going to abuse this.
Seize.
I'm going to abuse this.
Well, I mean, people still do that with all kinds of things. I'm literally doing it with a vape right now.
You know what I'm not doing?
Vaping?
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't smoke cigarettes no more. I don't drink no more. I'm better than you guys.
Damn, Brenda, you got your shit really together since CPS took your kids. Fuck.
When trichloroethylene is in a gaseous form, it can cause numbness in the body, as well as symptoms similar to severe alcohol intoxication, like dizziness, confusion, and eventually unconsciousness. The Atlas Imperial plant did have a lot more trichloroethylene in the building than carbon tet, but again, this theory is pretty baseless. In order for there to be a series of concentrated trichloroethylene exposure all over the city, the spill at the plant would have had to have been astronomical.
Yeah, it'd have to be like a plant that only produced trichloroethylene and
Yes.
the whole thing exploded.
Yes. The chemical would have had to transform from a liquid to a vapor or a gas without human interference. And the chemical would have had to bypass all of the employees of the plant, leaving them unaware, unfazed, and within good health, while the rest of the town would be left totally vulnerable to the pollution that would literally only go into their windows at nighttime and specific areas and take form of a man wearing heels.
It'd be so funny if there was like a period of time where like the employees would just pass out for like their whole shift and then wake up and be like, "Oh, clock out."
And then they like look down and they're wearing heels and like a black hat.
And they have
like,
lipstick all
black.
over their mouth. They're like, "What happened?"
They're having like mad
The-
guess or blackouts.
Dude, the whole night shift is because they're
Wait,
the
oh my
night
God,
shift
this
feels
would be such a good book.
the night shift. They like going buck wild. Like the other guys, the day shift, they just pass out because they're old. They're old people. That's why they work day shift.
Do they not work or what?
No, they haven't all month because of the spill. They show up because they forget because all the exposure is like frying their brains.
Right.
So they show up, pass out, and then they wake up. They're like, "I gotta go." Clock out. Night shift clocks in. Like, let's get buck wild, baby. Get your heels.
Get your heels on. We're going to go fucking scare the shit out of some people.
We're gonna go jack off in the window. Let's go.
And they're like, I hope I don't get blasted my fucking head off by a shotgun farmer. Dr. Cronenberg said, there was no possibility of trichloroethylene vapors getting into the outside atmosphere in any concentration that would even closely approximate a toxic condition. And he's a state health official. He says, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, you fat cop.
These cops is dumb. We can both agree there was a prowler and there were gas attacks.
Absolutely.
I feel fairly confident in that.
Absolutely. I think it was your ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
You know, the one that was tall.
Attacked again.
And had a hat on.
What, tall, skinny, and white with tattoos? Oh, which one could that?
Oh, yeah, one of them.
You know my, yeah.
The one
you know
that
my
had like
track
the
record.
penis in his hand in the window. You know?
Literally
He
narrow
was
it down.
churning the butter. So that was the one.
Narrow it down.
I can't. There's
Okay.
the one that had blue eyes, the one that had
56.
brown eyes. I don't know.
Okay.
The one that had no eyes.
As long as they look like Slenderman, I'm in.
Okay, well, let's go.
Yeah. So there's too much evidence to say there was not a prowler. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
summing that up. Panic and hysteria were spread by propaganda.
Totally.
The fault of the Gazette,
Yes.
mostly, but
Yes.
also the fault of the cops for not doing shit.
Of course.
Do you think there were false reports?
I do think that there are false reports, but not knowingly false. Eaton Paradise is enough. She didn't purposefully call in and make a false report.
Yeah, I think anything that was a false report would have been a false alarm. I think people did believe this was happening because it was.
Yeah.
Was there a cover-up?
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's, to me,
If the
very
FBI was
fucking
there,
obvious. Yeah.
they were not there to solve the crime.
No.
That's not what they were doing there. They were there to control the community, and they
Mm-hmm.
were there to make sure that things did not escalate and to figure out how they were going to make it not that way anymore.
They just want to make things back to normal.
Yeah.
Nothing's happening. Don't worry.
And that's a cover up.
Yep. And then I think we can agree the suspect, motive, and the gas that were used are all unclear and unknown.
Oh, God, yeah. I'm not going to act like I fucking know anything. All I know is that it's not.
Yeah, I don't think it was Farley.
You don't?
No, I don't think it was Ape Man. And I know for fucking sure that I don't know what kind of gas it was.
Yeah.
Maybe there have been advancements in common scientific knowledge, common chemical knowledge, that maybe there is a gas that is very obvious that it is, and we just don't know about it because we're not scientists
Right.
or chemists, but I don't know what it is.
Suspect, I'm unsure of. Gas, I'm unsure of. Motive, I am also unsure of.
Sexual
but I feel
perversion.
I did kind of write something in there about it too, because the Gasser watching the Smith sisters like writhe.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
That might
Coming
not...
into the house, watching through the window
Mhm.
when Mr. Kearney came home and he's just in there in the window.
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's sexual, but I think he was deriving some pleasure from it.
Right.
Some satisfaction.
Right. There's like the Cape Intruder, which I might like do maybe a mini on next season. We might, I don't know. But the Cape Intruder was just like a 17-year-old boy who was like going into people's houses and like watching them sleep. He wasn't jacking off. He wasn't touching nobody.
He just liked watching.
They would just like roll over, wake up, and he'd just be standing in their room.
I would cut his neck open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They never caught him.
Really?
He like entered a ton of people's homes.
When was this?
Not very long ago.
It was me.
He was white.
Yeah, I was. It's called a tan. There was a mad gasser. He was using gas. Don't know the... What? Don't know the... I'm summing it up. Don't know the intention other than he enjoyed it. It was for personal gain. Nothing else. Cover-ups, cover-ups, cover-ups. Not Farley. ACAB. Ape Man. And those are my talking points.
Okay. I think I wrote down here, I said, there was a mad gasser.
Mhm.
There was also a mass hysteria.
Oh, yeah.
The police covered it up. We'll never know exactly what happened. There's simply too many facets. It's safe to say that this case is extremely intriguing, terrifying, and mysterious, which is why it's so fucking good.
Yep.
Ape Man.
Ape Man. It has Ape Man. It also has Man Ape. It has
Ape Man.
Ape Man's ghost.
APEMANA. N.
Ape Manin. That's Mad Gasser, my dudes.
That's Mad Gasser of Mattoon.
It's a long, winding road, but there's just a lot to it.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
As soon as we get out of this coffin,
Yes,
we're checking
yes,
ourselves
yes.
into an inpatient.
And then I'm going to
Facility.
go. I'm going to go into a padded room.
Well, I enjoyed this one.
Oh my God! Wow! Thank you so much for listening to Radio Grave.
This is a long one, and you put up with our socio-political rants.
I'm off
Appreciate
the
that.
rails. Thank you. I'll be back on my medication as soon as I pick it up tomorrow from the pharmacy.
I'll be on my same medication tomorrow, so don't expect a change.
Hey, for now, I'm unwell.
We'll just catch you next time, I think.
I'll see you next time
Oh my god.
through the radio.
Oh my god.
Anyways, bye.
Bye.
At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety. Continue to carry out the following instructions.
Radio Grave is hosted by Amber Byland and Dominique Makasuya. Music courtesy of AOA Music, Carl Casey at White Bat Audio, and intro music by Simon Bickbyler. Audio mixing and editing by Amber Byland. Logo and cover art by Dominique Makasuya. All other media and sound clips used are protected under fair use and are for the purpose of criticism, commentary, news reporting, education, and research. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.